Hey Stampers, this is Kathy Hansen, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card that I made at Stamp Camp North in Westminster, Colorado yesterday. It was a snowy day, but we had a lot of fun, and a lot of the stampers actually showed up through the snow. So this card is actually done with the paper from the Celebration, the January-February 2022 Celebration brochure. And there were several in colors and then Granny Apple Green that were in that set. We have Fresh Freesia, we have Pool Party. I guess these aren't all in colors, are they? Okay, so Fresh Freesia, Pool Party, Petal Pink, and Granny Apple Green. Some of the colors that I used for the ribbon were in colors. This, for instance, this ribbon is Pale Papaya, and this ribbon is Fresh, well, that's Fresh Freesia and Pool Party. And this ribbon, actually, I pulled out of my stash. I couldn't find a color of ribbon that we have in the catalog right now, so I pulled something that was retired out of my stash for this one. These pages are printed with this black, you can see this, the stamping in the background is black on several of them. The green didn't have that, but there is a coordinating stamp set. This is all part of the celebration, and right now it's going on through the end of February, and it comes in a set. For a $100 purchase, you get 12 by 12 sheets plus this stamp set. And this stamp set, this particular stamp and these leaves coordinate with this green paper. So I was able to pull out the stamp set and add the black ink onto those pages as well. So that it kind of matched the other cards. The cards that were the most popular at Stamp Camp yesterday, by the way, were these two. The Granny Apple Green and the Fresh Freesia went very quickly. And what I ended up with was a whole lot of the Petal Pink. So the card I'm going to make for you today is from the kit that I made with the Petal Pink. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you how this was done. I'm going to open up this kit. Pull out all the pieces parts. This is the little bag that has the flowers on the front, so we're going to set that aside. And here's my little piece of ribbon. We're going to set that aside. I will give you some of the measurements as we go, but you don't have to really worry about writing them down because I also have them on my blog at kathyscraftroom.blogspot.com, and you'll be able to get all those measurements there. So I'm going to set aside the thinking of you because that's going to go on the front. And actually, I'm going to start on the inside of this card because to me that's always a good thing to just get out of the way. So for the inside, again, this is Petal Pink. And I chose Petal Pink ink and these stamps for the inside. This is the tree, or actually I guess it's flowers. I always think of it as a tree because it's got this big long, almost a trunk. It's actually stems. This is out of the 21-22 annual catalog, and it's called Quiet Meadow. So that's where these flowers came from that I stamped on the inside, and I stamped that with the coordinating Petal Pink ink. The Wishing You So Much Happiness came from the On the Horizon stamp set that's in the January through June mini catalog that's available right now. So that is the Thinking of You right up here, the On the Horizon stamp set. The inside, I used the Wishing You So Much Happiness stamp, and that's what we have right here. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the inside of the card. Yes, I know I use a lot of adhesive, but you know what? My cards don't fall apart, and I've seen some cards that do, so that makes me happy. Okay, so that's it for the inside. That's all I felt the need for on the inside. On the front, oh, and this paper actually is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. On the front, I have just a plain white piece, 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and I'm going to attach that first. So that just fits right onto the front of the card, like this. Then I have this piece of paper. This actually is a little bit different than this piece. I don't know how well you can see that, but this one has the white flowers in the background, and those were pre-printed on this paper. The black flowers over it were pre-printed on that paper. This one, I used that same stamp set. This one doesn't have the white flowers, so I stamped these flowers on it to make it kind of go with the set that we were making. And I'm going to attach this piece to, let's see, which way do I want that? Yeah, I kind of like it this way. You can see some of it peeking out behind the other piece, I think. I think that's about right. This piece is, this is 5 inches long. Well, from this to here is 5 inches, and then this is 3 3/4 inches. So this piece is 3 3/4 inches, and again, this is Petal Pink cardstock, by 2 inches, and I'm going to attach that about 3/8 of an inch from the left side of the designer paper. Okay, you don't see that very much on these samples. If you look at them very closely, you can see that in the background, but it's kind of hard to see them because they're behind those big flowers. So what I'm going to do is, I've already done these flowers, and I'm going to show you in just a minute how I made these flowers, how I colored them in. These flowers are all different shapes. I thought this one needed to go at the top because it's just kind of a small flower, and I wanted the pretty bumpy side of it to show. So I'm just going to attach that directly to the cardstock, and I'm going to put it kind of up here toward the top. This flower had a real flat petal down here at the bottom, so I decided that would be a good one for the bottom. And I'm going to attach that. It overlaps the bottom of this piece just very slightly. And then this is the only real full flower, and I kind of like that. So what I did with that is I put some Stampin' Dimensionals on it, and I'm going to pop that up right over these other pieces. I don't think I need more than that. That should hold it nicely. So that I just put, well, kind of about there. So that just pops up a little bit. You can't really see it with the camera, but from the side maybe you can see that that has a little dimension in there. Then I have these itty bitty flowers, and these actually came from the same die set. I'll show you that stamp set as long as we're here. This is a pretty cool thing because it's got the stamp set that has these big flowers. They don't look that big on the front of the case, but they are pretty sizable flowers. And then they also have these little tiny ones. But what's really cool about this, I totally love this. You do have the background for all these different shapes. So you can stamp that in if you want, but I didn't want a solid background. I wanted to have just this kind of an almost watercolory effect. So what I did instead, well, let me show you this first. This is an embossing folder that coordinates. It has those same 3 flowers in it, and if you want to emboss them, you can do that. For this particular card, I chose to not emboss them, but that also is a very cool look. And this stamp set is called Art in Bloom, and the coordinating dies and embossing folder this is the Bloom Hybrid embossing folder, and these are the Bloom dies. So what I really like about this, I want to show you the stamp too. The stamp actually stamps all three of these flowers at the same time. And then when you pull out the die, which I totally love, it also has the same three flowers in the same configuration, so you can just line it up like that to cut these pieces out. That saves you, well, probably 2/3 of what you would be doing if you had to cut them individually. So that is a total time saver. Love it. And then these three little flowers, I did not stamp, but I punched them out of some shimmer vellum in a coordinating color. This is actually pale papaya shimmer vellum, but it went with the petal pink fairly well. So this is the little die for the flowers, and I punched those three at a time. As a matter of fact, I have a big shot. I have it's a Big Shot Plus, so I can accommodate 8.5 by 11 paper. So I just put these in side by side and cut them out at the same time, and I not only saved 2/3 of my time, but I also halved that by cutting them all together. These I'm just going to attach with a little bit of liquid glue. And I put my liquid glue into these little containers because they have a pinpoint edge and they're just very easy to use. And then I get these rust-proof pins because I discovered that when you get these little containers, they come with a pin in them, but that pin rusts inside of the glue and it gives you this kind of brown icky stuff. So I go to the fabric store and I get rust-proof pins to put in the top of it. These little pieces, I just wanted to add a tiny little bit of shimmer, so I put those right in the center. I put one in the center of each flower here. You could also use glue dots to do this, but I decided to use the liquid glue. Okay, so there that is. And then I have the little Thinking of You. And the Thinking of You, this piece was 3 inches long by 1 inch tall. This piece was 2 3/4 inches long by 3/4 of an inch tall. And then I used this punch. This is the Lovely Labels, let me see. I wrote it down here because I knew I would forget. Yes, Lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch. So you actually could choose either of these two shapes, and then you can punch at 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, or 1 inch. It has 3 different tracks in there. So all you have to do is line it up in the correct track. Actually, I used this one. Line it up in the track and then punch. And you know, I found that if I turn it over this way, line it up in that punch, I can see right there where it is, and I can make sure that that's centered exactly the way I want it, and then I can punch. I'm not going to punch this one because it's already punched at the right size, but then I would just punch down and I would have it. So you can make a label 3 different widths and then however long you want with this punch, which comes in really handy if you have a long saying that isn't going to fit within any of the dies or the punches. These are all Stampin' Up! Products, by the way, that I'm using today. The Thinking of You, I am just going to line up right on this back piece, this mat, and you can see it fits right in there. I just made it 1/4 of an inch smaller so that it has an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And this I'm also going to pop up. So I'm going to put a few little dimensionals on here. You know, and I think for the center one I'm going to cut a little bit off the edge here. I like to use all of the stuff on this page. I was teaching a class once and I had about, I don't know, maybe 8 people in the class. and one of the ladies used up all of the pieces on the inside and left the border all the way around, and she started to throw it in the trash, and all of a sudden there were like 8 gasps from the different people around the table, and it just did my heart good because I taught these people well, that they knew, most of them knew that they needed to use up that outside edge too. Okay, and then this, I'm just going to line that up, kind of tuck it under the petals of this flower and line it up right at the edge of the designer series paper. That looks pretty straight, I think. I think we're good there. Okay, then I have this little piece of ribbon, and all I'm going to do with this ribbon is I'm just going to tie a knot in it, and nothing fancy, just a little knot, because I'm not really trying to do anything fancy on this card. It's fancy enough with these big flowers. And then I'm going to attach that with a glue dot. And I had a glue dot here a minute ago. Here we go. My glue dots. Here's another thing I used to have happen in my classes. People are always so helpful, and they always want to help me clean up after a class. So what they would do is take this roll of glue dots, and of course the glue dot is right here. I don't know if that's showing up very well. Not really, but there is a glue dot right here. So what they would do is tear this paper all the way back and then tear it off right here. So all these other glue dots were exposed around the edge, and then they'd put it back in the box. So the little roll was glued to the inside of the box, and I had lost all of those glue dots. So what I started doing is tying this little string around it, and I move it. As I pull off a glue dot, I just move this little string back, and then when I go to use it, I know that the first glue dot is right there. It's right there next to my string. And then when I tear it off, I always make sure that I've torn it off so that I'm covering all of the glue dots and none of them are exposed. So that's just a little tip for you. Okay, so this card actually is finished, but I want to backtrack a little bit and show you how I colored in these flowers, because it is just the slickest thing. I saw it online not too long ago, maybe less than a week ago, and I don't remember who it was that was doing it, but it just, I was so happy with this technique because it gives you, like I said, that watercolor effect without having to pull out a paintbrush. Here I have a sponge dauber, and this is the one that I used with the Petal Pink ink, and I stamped this far enough in advance so that the ink wouldn't smear as I'm going, but just dip it into here, dip it into your ink, and then all you have to do is just pull from the inside to the outside of the petal, and that ink kind of is going to be darker on the inside, maybe a little lighter on the outer edge. I was able to ink in about 180 of these flowers in less than an hour. If I was painting them, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about how long it would have taken me. But I really liked the effect of it, and I think I will probably use this technique several more times because it just makes life so much easier. And this one, because it had those little flat flowers, I kind of daubed a little bit over those 2 bottom ones, and then the rest of them I did the same thing where I just pulled the ink from the inside to the outside of the flower, of the petal, and then what I ended up with were these beautiful flowers. I hope you've enjoyed this little mini tutorial. It was a really fun card to make. The ladies loved it because it was very quick to make, and it's just a nice card. And the fact that you can make it in so many different colors. Now the thing about this paper is that it is only available for a few more days. So you want to contact, if you have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, you certainly want to contact that person and place an order so that you can get this paper in the stamp set. And there we have it. That's the class, that's the tutorial, and we're finished with this beautiful Thinking of You card. Thank you so much for visiting today.